This morning's council meeting. Great to see so many people here in the public gallery as well. So welcome to you all. Good to have everybody here. So we'll open the meeting and first move to apologies. And I have an apology from the Mayor. I have an apology from Councillor Johansson. Those apologies for absence. I have an apology from Councillor Swiggs for an early departure. And I have an apology from Councillor Manji for a late arrival. So I'm happy to move those apologies. Do I have a seconder? Aaron? All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Declarations of interest. That item serves as a reminder. Glenn?
I've got one on item 6. I know the value of your friends, so I can declare an interest.
So Glenn Livingstone declaring an interest on item 6. Thank you. So declarations of interest. Then moving to public participation. And we do have one presentation in the public forum this morning. Can I invite Mary Tingey from the Veggie Garden Project to the table? Good morning, Mary. Thank you very much indeed for coming along.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, now you have 5 minutes this morning, and you can leave time for questions within that 5 minutes if you wish. So welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, we're here in response to your Healthy Food Action Plan. As you're aware, the purpose of the action plan is to make healthy food choices easy, which is in line with the purpose of our Veggie Garden project. The Veggie Garden project is a response to the call for rediscovering the simple joy of delicious food, which that cabbage certainly is mouthwatering. Community gardens develop through soil fertility, grow strong organic plants, and it is this process that then forms a true attraction for people. So I'm Mary Tingey, and I am the chairperson of the Canterbury Community Gardens Association. I coordinate the Orchards and Schools program for the Canterbury Horticultural Society, and currently I work as a community gardener at Delta Community Gardens, Pack Street Community Gardens. I have 40 years teaching experience plus 8 years in the community garden sector.
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Newbound. I am the Secretary of the Canterbury Community Gardens Association and presently the coordinator of the Littleton Community Garden and a member of Project Littleton. Over the last 11 years, I have taught cooking and garden in primary schools, both here and in Australia, and have developed support networks of school gardens working with the Garden to Table project in New Zealand and the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Programme in Australia, as well as developing a community hub here in the Harbour Basin area. Now, our vision is for luxuriant gardens across Christchurch, full of seasonal organic vegetables, herbs, fruits and flowers. We've done the photo, well done. The photo is an example here, is an example of the Delta Community Garden in springtime. These gardens will be places where people can come to learn the skills needed to grow, harvest and cook their own delicious fresh food. They will learn to teach these skills to others while working in schools and communities. The garden is a setting where people will learn respect for the natural world whilst building friendships and lifelong relationships.
Right, so this is a photograph from actually Eranui Primary School where we had grown delicious fresh food in their school garden, and the children were about to make themselves coleslaw sandwiches. And this boy in his interaction with the cabbage says it all. Now, our project itself has 4 aspects to it which tie together. We have foundation gardens, workshops, an apprenticeships program and community connections. Foundation gardens. These gardens will be thriving models where people come to learn, to teach and to enjoy food. These will be the energy drivers for the project as lush green environments bring people together.
Now, workshops. We're looking to organise workshops that will respond to the interests of the wider community, that will stimulate others to participate in the Veggie Garden project and also to initiate their own organic projects in the communities. As you see here, people had grown garlic. They now got together to plant the garlic, and the garlic would then be stored in the community kitchen for them to cook. One of the main things with the Veggie Garden projects is community connections. Gardens bring people together and strengthen community connections, and the Veggie Garden project plans to widen these connections through workshops, visits and newsletters. We need schools and community gardens and the community to be all working together.
So, apprenticeships. There's a well-known intergenerational gap in the skills required to grow and sustain and drive local food projects. I was just talking to someone the other day, and the 40-year-olds did not know how to grow. They were relying on an 80-year-old to teach them. Apprenticeships will pass on growing, harvesting and cooking skills, as well as teaching and community skills in a positive, enthusiastic and appreciative environment. After their training, the apprentices will work as garden coordinators in new gardens, thus establishing a strong supported network of gardens throughout Christchurch. And in the photo, working with very small children, it is a skill that needs to be taught, how people can teach in gardens. And finally, one of the big hurdles for community initiatives is the skilled people to drive the projects for growing fresh fruit at a community level. For the past 2 months, we have been designing the Veggie Garden project. Our foundation document is currently with our graphic designer. The outcome of the Veggie Garden project will be more people skilled to grow, harvest and cook in their own homes, schools and community gardens. This is a grassroots community-based project. We are envisaging that this is a 5-year project, but we are seeking funding for the next 12 months to get the project underway. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. That brings us to the end of the 5 minutes. We haven't got time for any questions, unfortunately, but thank you very much indeed for taking the time to present to us this morning. Thank you. There isn't time for questions, I'm sorry. Great, thank you. So now moving on to presentation of petitions, and there are none, but we do have a number of presentations this morning of certificates, Community Board's Executive Committee certificates. So presentation of certificates to elected members who have given more than 14 years of service to Christchurch Community Boards. These were acknowledged at the 2017 New Zealand Community Boards Conference, and we've got the certificates here to present today. So yeah, it gives me great pleasure to present these certificates to individuals who have given a significant amount of time as elected members to the city, as community board members. The first of which this morning is Oscar Alpers, who served on the Spraden Heathcote Community Board from 1989 to 2010 and Council from 1995 to 2007, so a total of 21 years. Oscar, I'd invite you to come up and receive your certificate, please. Thank you. So the second certificate is for Helen Broughton, who served on the Rickett and Wigram Community Board from 1995 to 2016 and the Hallswell Hornby Rickett and Community Board from 2017, as well as been on council from 2001 to 2013, a total of 22 years. Helen, would you like to come forward, please? And she's not here. That's all right. No, that's all right. That's fine. So we will arrange to get that certificate to her. Excellent. Sally Buck, who served on council from 1998 to 2017, served on the Fendleton Waimari Community Board from 1998 to 2016, and currently is the chair of the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board in 2017, a total of 19 years service. And then next, Val Carter, who served on the Fendleton Waimari Community Board between 1995 and 2016, a total of 21 years. Val, if you'd like to come forward, please. Congratulations, well done. Great. And the next certificate goes to Phil Clearwater, who served on the Spraydon Heathcote Community Board from 1995 to 2016, is currently on the Spraydon Cashmere Community Board, and obviously on council from 2013 to 2017, a total of 22 years service. Would you come forward, Phil, please? Congratulations, well done. Excellent. Okay, and next we have a certificate for Pat Harrow, who served on the Fendleton Waimari Community Board from 1989 to 2007, and on council from 1989 to 2007, a total of 18 years. Is Pat here? All right, so we'll make arrangements to get that certificate to Pat. That's great. And then next is Stuart Miller, who most recently served on the Akaro Wairewa Community Board from 2006 to 2013, but was also on the Banks Peninsula District Council from 1989 to 2006, a total of 24 years service. And then we have a certificate, and this one for some reason is in a frame and the others aren't, so I don't know what the explanation for that is. But Mike, you certainly like to be different, and this is another example of that. Mike, you have served on the Rickett and Wigram Community Board from 1992 to 2016, and the Hornby Hallswell Rickett and Community Board in 2017, a total of 25 years service. Will you come forward, please? Well done.
Thank you. Right. Cheers.
And then there are two other certificates that we're not able to present this morning because the recipients are not present. Peter Leloli served on the Rickett and Wigram Community Board from 2001 to 2016, so a total of 15 years service on that community board. And last but not least, also not here this morning, Yanni Johansson, who served on the Hagley Ferrymead Community Board from 2001 to 2016, is currently on the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board and council from 2007 to 2017, a total of 16 years service. So congratulations to all of those who've received certificates this morning. All of those periods are a long time, I think it's fair to say, in anyone's language. Well done.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I might just... when I decided not to stand again after 30 straight years service on Christchurch City Council, Canterbury United Council, Community Board, the Community Board gave me a Whitcoulls book token, which, before I could use it, went into liquidation. I received a slate recovered from the cathedral, and I didn't realise what rarity value that would soon have, but I received nothing from the Christchurch City Council. It's nice to get this from the Community Board's executive committee, but this is not from the City Council. And some other Community Board members with stronger National Party connections, got QSMs and QSOs. But yes, I think the council could do better in terms of thanking those who've provided service to the council.
All right, thank you very much indeed for your comments. The council, unfortunately, is also not the purveyor of QSMs. Yeah, once again, congratulations to all of those who've received certificates this morning. That's great. Okay, so moving on with our agenda, I'll now move that we resolve to include the supplementary report, item 22, the Port Hills Fire Recovery Report. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Tim, all those in favour? Against? That's carried. And now moving into the community board reports. So we would spend around 10 minutes on each of these reports, and where there are Part A's, what I'd propose to do is to deal with the Part A's as we're dealing with the report at the same time. So I'd first call on Mike Mora from the Hallswell Hornby Riccarton Community Board to provide that board's report to council. Welcome to the table, Mike.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Your Worship and councillors. It gives me, do you want me to talk about the Part A's or the board report first?
If you'd like to present the board report first, and then we'll move to the Part A's when you're ready.
Thank you. Our community board report, we've got the decisions under delegations, which was, that's all no great issues there. And I'd just like to comment on the establishment of a working party to consider the issues proposed around the Riccarton Passenger Lounge and Division Street. And just like to say that we had the first meeting of that working party last week, chaired well by Jenny Huey, and we've got a list of action points from that that we'll be taking forward, so that's quite positive. We also had we're progressing the former Hallswell Library satisfactory for community use, so we're really pleased to see that happening. And the Youth Leadership Day was very, very well attended. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there because of other engagements, but really looking forward to receiving the positive feedback from that, and there was, and looking forward to having another one of those sessions next year. So this will be the third that our community board will have done. So that's quite positive. And yes, so I've already commented on the antisocial behaviour in Riccarton, but yes, that's and we're looking forward to progressing our community board plan. So, yep, that's it, Mr. Mayor and councillors.
Thank you. So are there any questions for Mike on the community board report at this stage, and then we'll move to the Part A's? Okay, so no questions on the report. So Jimmy's moving. Phil's got a question, yep, and then we'll come to the moving and seconding shortly. So Phil.
Mike, thanks for your report, and in relation to the issues near the bus exchange, can I just ask you, are the working group also considering enhancement of the nearby streets where the issues really are, like Division Street? Is that enhancement of that being included?
No, well, it's not included in that working party, but it will be. But there's a separate working party that's working on that, Councillor Clearwater. So hopefully those two working parties will come together. Yep.
Any further questions on the report, Glenn?
Thank you. I noticed, Mike, that with the houses, with the Riccarton Race Course development,
Yes.
300 mil for 600 homes, 500,000 each. Is that being promoted in the local community, or too soon to?
It's not up to us to promote whether it's affordable housing or not,
No, I know.
Councillor, but it's something that our board are well aware of. We've been kept in the loop.
Okay.
And there is some report coming to our community board on the development at Riccarton Racecourse.
All right.
Yep.
We have different measures of affordability, so, but you know that between.
Well aware of that, yes. So, yeah, we're well aware of that. Thank you, councillor.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you. So this item 5, to receive the Halswell Hornby Riccarton Community Board report, moved by Jimmy, seconded by Anne. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So now let's move to item 6, which is the first of the Part A's from that community board. They are Waka Basin Land Exchange. Mike, did you have any comment that you wanted to make on this by way of introducing?
I was just very, very pleased to be able to move the staff report in total on that, so without change, so I'm more than comfortable with that.
Great. Okay, that's great. Are there any questions on this report? Jimmy is happy to move.
Yes.
Seconded by Anne. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Okay, and then we have an updated recommendation on the next Part A, which is simply that the council refers the report back to the community board for further consideration. Once that's happened, obviously, then, depending what the community board considers, it'll come back to council in due course. So I'm happy to move that the council refer the report back to the community board for further consideration. Do I have a seconder? Aaron?
Can I ask a question? Yes.
Jimmy, yeah, please.
I just don't know, based on the staff, the original, the information, particularly mentioned the staff organized a meeting with the users group couple of months ago, and they particularly expressed their desire, before the demolition, they would like to work with council, preserve the memorial plaque, and work toward an alternative community facility more suited for fit in their needs. So I just don't know whether the updated status has been changed, so we need to lie on the table. I just want to know.
Yes, it has, Councillor Chen, and following a meeting that I had with residents last Thursday, and more information came to light on the history of that facility, and sort of clouds over the ownership, the fact that it was gifted land, and yeah, there's quite a lot of issues that have since come to light, and a lot of the community were expecting another round of consultation before this final decision was made as well. So just to make sure that everybody's reasonably comfortable with the whole picture, what we've asked for is it lay on the table and come back to our community board after more consultation with the parties and listen to their concerns as a board, rather than me meeting with 3 or 4 of them the other day, that's the best way forward.
Thank you.
Yep, so we're referring it back to the community board to do whatever work they want to do with it, to consider it further, and we're expecting there would be a further either the same or updated recommendations to council after that's occurred.
Yep.
Aaron.
Yeah, Mike, I'd be quite interested, because this is right on the boundary, and so the ward that I have the privilege to represent is across the road from this hall, so I'd quite like to be part of those discussions as well, if possible.
Be more than happy, Councillor.
Especially when the user group meets, I think there's a number of options available to the site, so yeah, be good. Cool.
Yep, great. So Mike, you're happy with that?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I have moved, Jimmy will second. No further discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed, Mike, and thanks to your board for the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Hang in there.
So next...
Not going anywhere just yet.
Next I would call Carolyn Potter and Melanie Coker will come to the table as well, I assume, from the Spraden Cashmere Community Board. Carolyn and Melanie, good morning and welcome. You have 10 minutes to present your board report, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Kia ora tātou. We'll be guided by our pictures at the beginning, form over function, wherever the pictures are.
They're coming, don't worry.
They'll be on the screen.
Here we go. Oh, we've got a title page. Brilliant. Right, so we're just going to roll through the images we've got here. So in this slide, we've got an initiative by our recreation advisor, Emma Pavey, who decided it would be a good idea to do a Get Set Go workshop with the youth who had approached the board about having basketball lights in Hone Park because she wanted to get them upskilled to be able to run their own event. So she did that of her own initiative and got them all to come along and ran that workshop herself. You can see her there in the middle, and what the kids said at the end, she said, "What have you learnt today?" And then they said to her, "We've learnt that you do a whole lot more work than we do." So it was really cool that she'd done that, and we're really appreciative of it. And it's building the community basically, with good community development.
Next slide. Who runs this? These pictures are from the Addington Times, which I helped deliver and delivered over the weekend, and is a wonderful local newsletter. And this is the opening of the Little River Link Cycleway, which I've already mentioned. I received notice of the opening 24 hours before it happened. It poured with rain, but there was a fantastic turnout, and apparently the food provided by the contractor was terrific. And so those some of the local people there and local dignitaries as well. We mustn't confuse the two. And there for the opening, but it's a very good thing for Addington, and it always has been a good thing for Addington. And one of the things it did was, because there was a cycleway coming off Brougham from Collins Street, we closed traffic into Addington from Brougham, which meant that the rat run through to town, which used to occur with people going round our old and beautiful St Mary's Church at 70 and 80 k's and running into bollards and wrecking the local neighbourhood, they've been stopped from coming off and doing that rat run, and the cycleway has been acknowledged by the locals. I know, it's such a shame. It's been acknowledged by the locals as well as cyclists as being of great benefit to the neighbourhood, and we're very pleased to have it.
Here's some pictures of some plants, native plants. So in Windsor Crescent, which runs, but there's a walkway between Windsor Crescent and Littleton Street. I don't know if you know where West Braden School is. And there was a community group, an informal group, that had come to the board before I was on it about 5 years ago, wanting to put in a community garden. And apparently at the time, the report came, it was a little bit tricky because of sort of legalese around the land and the trickiness of it, but finally what they've been able to do is rather than putting in an edible kind of garden, they're putting in native plants. So you can see in the slide the bit where they've sprayed off the grass on either side. A lot of parents wait here, it's like right next to a pedestrian crossing, so they'll wait there for their kids to cross the road and take them home. So they had a big plant out about 2 weekends ago, putting lots of plants in, which we should have got some photos of, but they're on Facebook if you want to look around on there. So that's pretty cool.
And the St Martin's Bowling Club came to see us. They were so strategic, fantastic. They came to see us a month ago just to talk about the St Martin's Bowling Club, and looked absolutely wide-eyed when we asked if they wanted anything, and said absolutely not. And here they are providing coaching to local school pupils around the corner from the bowling club. It is a venue which is bang in the middle of St Martin's and has people going there to speak. For instance, I've spoken there at a Probus Club meeting, and so it's available to the community. And lo and behold, we got a request last week for funding for 2 heat pumps, which we were delighted to approve. This is part of the board's bus tour, and we're looking at the reservoir, which is in the postmodern photograph at the bottom. It looks as though it could be something out of the film Chinatown. And the reservoir is a great space. There's already been a wedding held there. You can't see what it looks like, but you walk into it and there's walls on either side and concrete up the front. Shut up, Michael. And there's a lawn there, and it's a great space for movies or weddings or any kind of function who want to hire out something which looks quite unusual but is very functional. And we're hoping that this reservoir space will have great public public use in this, between the two reservoirs, we hope that this space will provide a great function space for the people who live on Huntsbury Hill, because lots of people living on the hills don't have access to green. And we are hoping that this will be able to provide a resource for the local people as well as a wider community, including the summertime's crowd.
Because we just did our bus trip quite recently, as you know, a couple of the councillors came along. The other thing that was probably one of the highlights was going to Old Stone House and having Richie and the contractor talk about the repairs that they're doing, which are quite intricate. But what was quite cool is when you go there, there's like a little boardwalk and you can just climb onto it, and all of a sudden you're on the roof and you can see what they're doing underneath all this plastic wrapping. So we're really excited when this, I've never been in the building myself, so I can't wait till it's open and we can go in there and have a function or something like that. So
and the bloke who talked to us, he lived, he was from the UK, and he lived right next door to the stone that we're getting to help rebuild the building, the quarry in the UK that were coming from there, and he was of course a stonemason. It was really fantastic to talk to him. And the prior building that he had done just prior to the old stone house was the Adventure Park, which has just had an award for architecture. So he'd gone from this really modern recycled timber building in the Adventure Park to the old stone house, and he was such an interesting person to talk to. Our concern with this building in the future will be that the volunteers are getting older, and we'll be looking for a rejuvenated community committee structure to handle the building. And I think the council is going to have some problems in the future facing volunteerism versus the facilities in our community and the running of them, and I think we're going to have to think up innovative ideas to manage those issues in the future. The floodplain management, this is 2014 round the loop at Beckenham, and the next one is last week with the rains on the floodplain on Sparks Road. And these basins on Sparks Road and Henderson's Road and Sutherland's Road and in other areas up in the southwest around the new developments are designed by the drainage guys to prevent flooding further downstream in the Heskett. And we are thrilled to see them and to have them. And as these basins get developed and the trees start to grow, they'll also become a walking facility for the local neighbourhood. And thanks to Carlene's intervention, we've got signs up behind around these basins in Punawai and all around to explain to the community that it isn't yet another housing development about to come in, but a flood basin to help prevent flooding in Christchurch. Because I don't think the council does enough to communicate with its people what we are doing, how we are doing it, and why we are doing it. And I think we should be putting more signs up around projects to say what's happening and where their ratepayers' dollars are going. Because it's really good to tell the community, you may think this is a problem right now, but what's going to happen in the future will be great for all of us, just as this is. And then we, do you want to do the buses first?
So another thing that's happening is next week we're going to have the community come along to talk about bus routes. We all know with the changes with ECAN's bus routes over the last few years, they've sort of become more difficult for people, and people are wanting routes in certain places like up the hill and through Summerfield and things. So we're going to get ECAN and council to come along and talk to them and find out about what they're wanting and to get that information together. So it's next Monday.
Yeah, we've got a Cashmere View Hospital provides laundry for all of Bupa's facilities in Christchurch, and the smell from the laundry has been a bane for local neighbours for 5 years or more, and continues to be a bane. And we would like greater involvement from ECAN on these issues about air quality. We've had a meeting between Bupa and us and ECAN, which was a good meeting and a cooperative meeting, but we'd like to see some big decisions being made about air quality in Christchurch. At the moment, we're doing consultations on the community plan, and we're having such fun with it. And we've been into several supermarkets, and yet last night, Melanie and I and staff members were at the Rowley shops, and we were interviewing young people, mostly young people, in the community at the Rowley shops about their response to the community plan. And it was just so interesting, their understanding, their interpretation, for instance, of culture, which involved their first languages, which were Tongan, Samoan, Niuean, and their interest in pursuing their languages and having the ability to retain their languages, whereas against in the St Martin's supermarket they would have been talking about the cathedral. So it's just interesting to talk about the culture and their heritage and what they want from their community, and whether they want old buildings and new buildings and public transport and things. And so that was great fun. And the other one is Vista Place. We've got a real problem up there with people in cars smoking obscure substances and playing dub music at the top of their noise, and calling the local residents, calling the police. Most nights, actually, night before last, they were there until 3 a.m. And we really wish that we could resolve that issue. We're trying to get a meeting between traffic engineers, police and us going. It's very difficult to get the police to come to meetings. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. So there is time for a couple of questions.
Regards to the Huntsbury Reservoir, it just seems a really logical thing that this is a hill suburb, lots of kids up there. It's the only flat area up there, and I want to thank, we want to thank Tim Drennan and his team for being open-minded and opening that to the community, because it took some time to kind of get that across. And if I had gone up there with my son, and if we had gone to the gates, which are bigger than Fort Knox's, a feat of engineering, and if we had decided to have a competition to jump them, I might have got over at 9.6 seconds, which beat my son, who was over at 10, if we'd actually done that. So.
Great, thank you. Phil.
Mine isn't a question, but a quick comment to, one, thank the board for a very full report, but two, just the comments in relation to the Little River Cycleway, and I think the board are aware that, in fact, the opening of that was run by NZTA. So, but what I do want to say is council are really grateful for the huge support that the community board gave well, the whole Cycleway project really, and the local residents. It was a very good example, in my view, of the community board being really proactive and supporting, you know, what will be as a neat project. So thank you for that.
Great,
and
thank you.
Happy to move or second the report, depending on time.
Yep, all right, so Phil moves, Tim seconds. I'll take a couple of other questions, one from Dion, one from Anne, and then we'll move on. Dion.
This is more I don't know how to ask this. It's more a response of what was said about the what, how, why comms. Can we get some sort of report to the Innovation and Sustainable Development Committee about our comms strategy around that sort of stuff? Because that committee is in charge of the council's brand and communication strategies. Sorry, I'm getting a cold. And I'd actually like to sort of, from what was just said, actually move that on further.
We do that through the committee. I'm not sure what you were asking for around communications around.
It was around came up with infrastructure yesterday as well.
It did.
Telling people what.
Oh,
People know about programs.
So I think that it's just something we get on and do. In terms of a proposal was that as we're starting to develop things, there's more information about what's going on and showing people that, you know, this is a council project as opposed to something else.
So we can just do it from the committee? All right, sounds good.
No, just doing it sounds great.
Just do it? Okay, great.
All right, great, thanks Dion. And finally Anne.
Yeah, just a fantastic work engaging with the community, particularly young people, fabulous. And secondly, when is your ECAN bus route meeting? Because that would be great.
I think it's on Monday night.
Would it be okay if, you know, I attended? Would that be okay?
Oh, I'm not sure. Have you got a passport?
It's just that there's similar issues.
We'll check your pockets at the door.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed for the update. And I'd certainly echo the comments made by Phil Clearwater around the opening of the Little River Link cycleway. I attended that with a number of other councillors, and Carolyn, yes indeed the food was particularly good, but the event was particularly good, and it's so important that we celebrate these things, and celebrate, I think in this case, the way that that particular cycleway was well supported by the local community. So it was great to see so many people there that
I
day.
would have loved to have been there had I known, and if I hadn't had a red fridge arriving at that time.
Yeah, and we certainly take that point, and Phil has certainly addressed that in his comments as well, but thank you. So we now move to receive your community board report. Do I have a mover? Phil, seconded by Tim. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. So now we move on to the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board, and Sally, if you'd like to join us at the table, please.
And we've decided it's Orange Day today.
Bright attire on a dull winter's day. It was great.
You can't tell us apart.
All right, so you've got 10 minutes to present your community board report, and we're certainly looking forward to hearing what's been happening in your area.
Yeah, I did too. Sorry. I've just been on a big holiday, so you have to excuse me if I'm not completely up to date with everything. The community board decisions under delegation. We had the approval of the final concept design for rebuild of the Woolston Community Centre at 689 Ferry Road, and the board requested staff to investigate options to allow the facility to be extended in the future. We adopted the new council's standing orders and code of conduct. We've resolved that Alex is our board representative on the external interagency sex workers working party. We resolved to ask Fletcher Living to consider a dog park in the Eastern Frame. This could be one with the basic equipment to be trialled on a vacant site in the central city as part of a transitional project, and please note this happened while I was away. And we received a petition asking for the intersection of Worcester Street at Fitzgerald Ave to remain open to traffic in all four directions, and this was referred to the ITI committee. And we recommended that Daryl Latham and Tim Linley are the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board representatives on the Redcliffs Park Land Transfer Hearings Panel. And significant projects and initiatives. We've got a working party established to plan the official opening of the Matuku Tako Sumner Centre, and Daryl is our representative from the community board on that, and we've requested that a seminar on the management of the facility and what it will be used for, we've requested a seminar on that. We've also had information on the Christchurch Red Zone Walk Run Bike Trail, and this is a 12-kilometre Avon trail that will run from the central city to New Brighton and open in stages starting in spring this year. The trail will be fully opened by early 2018. It's intended as transitional use of the land, lasting for at least 2 years until more permanent uses are found. The Avon Otakaru Network is leading the project, and it's done to coincide with the Christchurch City Council contractors upgrading the temporary river stop banks. I think this is a really exciting project, and it'll be really good to see the land being used and the fences coming down around that area, all along that area. Main Road Sumner, earthquake road repairs along Shag Rock started at the end of May, and apart from work on the road, the barrier that goes around the bend at Shag Rock with a guardrail, there'll be a guardrail and wire rope barrier installed there as well. As you well know, there's been some accidents there. Nayland Street car park, demolition to clear the site started on Wednesday 3rd of May, and this will provide 20 extra car parks for the new community facility. Should be completed by the end of June, subject to weather. Significant community issues. We have an annual expo in our area called It's Great to Live Here. It's planned to take place in July. The project aims to celebrate what is great about living, working and playing in Linwood, Woolston, Phillipstown and Bromley, and staff are working with groups and organisations to plan the expo. And planning is also underway for Winter Blast, which is an event for older adults in our board area. This will be held at the Woolston Club on the 5th of July. You're all invited, maybe except Jamie. And we've got part of Kids Fest. Staff are working with youth groups and organisations to plan an event called the Big Chill, and this will be held at Linwood Park on the 8th of July. We have the development of civil defence emergency plans, and we've got a group in Redcliffe's Residents Association they've had a couple of meetings to progress the development of their own community plan. This was facilitated by Robin Arnold. At the meeting of the 29th of May, the board talked about the proliferation of digital billboards that are appearing throughout the community board area. The board notes that the council has a policy relating to advertising on bus shelters and is asking the council to develop a policy on digital billboards and outdoor advertising. And rather than leaving it just up to the RMA to monitor this. Community Resilience Partnership Fund criteria. The board discussed this and is asking the council to engage and discuss with the community boards on the criteria for the Community Resilience Partnership Fund. Christchurch Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan. Now we note that this has been out for consultation, and we're asking that the council have a representative from our community board when they decide on the membership of the hearings panel for this plan. Community board communications strategy. The board would actually like a discussion on how the council can support us to communicate to the public better on what our community board is doing and the good things that we're doing in our area. Community board significant matters of interest. Linwood Village. The board requested a meeting with Regenerate Christchurch to specifically discuss about regeneration of Linwood Village area. We're getting a lot of negative press about this area, and we want to have a revitalisation plan that reflects the community aspirations, and we want to work with the local community organisations on how we can do this. We've actually organised a meeting with Environment Canterbury, just with our board, to discuss air quality, public transport and some other issues that in our board area. It's happening. When's that happening? Next week, yeah. The board discussed the composition of the proposed council coastal futures group, and we'd like to ensure that any process developed aligns with our communities. We'd like to have this very important conversation. I think this has moved on since this part was written, so we've actually had a meeting already on that. And park rangers. The board agrees with community feedback on the high standard of work the park rangers do and how they work with volunteers around the city, and in that way contributing to keeping down the costs of maintaining green spaces. The board is supportive of increasing the number of park rangers in the city, as noted in a staff report to the Finance and Performance Committee. And lastly, I'd just like to thank Jake McClellan, who's not here today, my Deputy Chair, who stood in for me on several occasions recently while I was away, especially for the annual plan hearings. So thank you very much, Jake, and thank you everyone for listening.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Sally. We've got time for a couple of questions. Pauline?
Thank you for a good report. Look, I'm just highlighting the 7.1, the Linwood Village, and you mentioned that you're planning on having some meetings with Regen, and you're going to work with the community. Where is that at? Has it progressed at all? Because we're getting a little bit of convolution, if you like, with the cycleway program going through there, and the Linwood Village is being kind of brought up as part of that. So the ITI committee is actually replying back to them.
I'm going to pass it to Shapaya, but what we're talking about here is more like the problems we've got with people hanging around drinking all day, taking drugs, whatever they're doing, and we want to try and do regeneration for and revitalisation for that. I think the issue you're talking about in terms of the petition that came to the ITI committee is a different issue, but I'm going to pass it to Shapai to see.
It is a different issue, but they're mixing them up. So what I'm trying to
I
do is
see what you
see how you're progressing with the Linwood Village revitalisation plan.
Okay. So the Te Whare Roemata has been leading the pre-engagement on revitalisation of the Linwood Village area. And what they've done is they've spoken to the community about what issues they celebrate about the local community, what their concerns are. And one of the concerns that did come up is around the shopping centre and how there are a lot of businesses that have moved out. There's generally a sense that if nothing is done to change how things are currently in Linwood Village, that whole area will continue to be quite depressed, both people and place. The issue that's come to the ITI committee is something that was discussed even during the consultation process for the major cycle routes, and it's raised its head again as businesses realize that unless, in their opinion, that intersection remains open to traffic both ways, there isn't going to be enough business generated, because they say what cyclist would want to drive down or cycle down Worcester Street when there's actually nothing to stop there for. There isn't a beautiful coffee shop, there isn't anything that would attract people to that centre. So it is something that needs to be worked on. At the same time, the discussions with Regenerate Christchurch around I think are going to be around how does Regenerate work with the local community so that they can support a community-led process that doesn't just look at what the master plan aspirations were, what the aspirations around community development are, and what the housing aspirations are, but something that looks holistically at that whole area and tries to address the different issues. So there will be a second step where different stakeholders who may be involved in the regeneration, like Housing New Zealand, Christchurch City Council, whoever else is identified through the pre-engagement, can come together and start to have a discussion on working.
Well, that's really encouraging, because I agree we need to do something there. And so have you had the meeting with Regenerate Christchurch yet?
That's on Monday, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Monday.
That's good.
Thank you. All right, do I have a mover for the report? Sarah, seconded. Pauline, Dion? Yep. Great, okay, so moved Sarah, seconded Dion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed for the report and the update today. Thank you. Okay, so our next item is item 10, the report of the Papanui Innis Community Board to Council. Ali Jones is here this morning. Ali, great to have you with us. If you'd like to come forward to the table. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Come on, people to see things to do.
If I run our trip over.
Eh?
If I run our trip over.
Well, I should be able to do that. That's not hard. Thank you. There you go. Right. Alrighty, we did try. I wanted to put some little rugby people in those seats to acknowledge the tour that we have on at the moment. We'll do that perhaps next time, because it doesn't look good with empty seats there. Okay, we'll just let that roll over. No Part A's in the Papanui Innis report today. Some of the significant projects in the ward at the moment, the main one really is the St Albans Community Centre, which is being is hugely anticipated by the community. Part of that community centre new build involves the relocation of the St Albans Lions building to McFarlane Park, which I know I've raised with you before. We have a working party in place which is meeting regularly, talking to sports groups, the Lions themselves, City Council, community staff. Currently at the moment the staff and the working party are working through planning issues, resource consent, because the land is reserve land, so there are just some formalities really, well hopefully they're just formalities we need to go through to get the boxes ticked there, costs of moving and fitting it out and so forth. That's an ongoing conversation at the moment, and we'll have to tie in very closely with the build date for the community, the new community centre. We're also looking for somewhere that community groups can go to while the community centre is being built. McFarlane Park will be filling a major need for that particular part of our ward, so we still need space for community groups, and we are looking at a number of places around the ward for that. We've been doing a lot of work with the Sticks area and the community groups out towards the Sticks. There was a meeting held in June 2015, and there have been a large number of meetings held since then. The community is concerned about the health of the Sticks. In fact, you'll see up there now there are some slides relating to a Source to Sea bus trip that we held recently and was very well attended by members of all of the community boards. One of the issues is maintaining not only the environmental health of the Sticks and all of the flora and fauna related to that, but flooding and low land levels are a concern, an issue around this area as well. But great communication and fantastic support from the staff and working with the community groups on that, and it's hoped that representatives from the local community will find time to commit to working on the Sticks Working Party, which, as I said, is being put together at the moment. We're getting an increasing number, which is really fantastic, of young people coming to the board, not only to request funding, and we have budgets for that, as all the community boards do, but then coming back and reporting on what they've achieved. And we are using those as an opportunity to promote through our local media and Facebook page and social media those positive outcomes, and some of them are quite phenomenal. We had a group from Belfast School, the prefects and house captains came to our 9th of May board meeting to report on their involvement in a leadership camp, and we've also heard from Casebrook Intermediate on that as well. And it's really funny, I remember one boy, the first boy to speak, he stood up and he said, I think I'm probably going to be really terrible at this. Those were his first words, but by the time he got through what he was actually saying to the board, man, he was just humming and was really confident, and then listened to his classmates say similar things. And we've heard from teachers with whom we meet regularly every quarter at Papanui Innes. They come in, there's one a week on Friday, and they are citing major positive changes in not only the house captains and prefects that are attending these leadership courses, but other students that work with these house captains and prefects as well. So it's a hugely important and effective part of what our youth development organisations do in our ward. We have a youth principals meeting a week on Friday. Kathleen Liberty will attend that. You may know the name. Kathleen has undertaken some psychosocial research relating primarily to how the earthquakes affected children in Christchurch, and also, as you may have heard, children who were not even born at the time of the quakes, and the problems that schools are having to deal with and other community groups are having to deal with. So she's presenting to the ward principals a week on Friday. Just yesterday we had a meeting. One of the major issues, and I've raised it before when I've talked to you all, is the ongoing stress and problems we are seeing in the eastern part of our ward. I mention again around Shirley and Richmond, and you will have been well aware of the outcome of the wellbeing survey that was released yesterday, and how a number of people in New Brighton and further east were quoted and spoken to about that. I reiterate again, we are seeing exactly the same issues and stresses in our ward. So I'm not saying that it's not happening in the east, clearly it is, but it is happening in our ward as well, in the east of our ward around Richmond and Shirley, and this is the area that is short of community facilities. And again, I remind you of our annual plan submission related to the Shirley Community Centre. Yesterday we met at the Shirley Primary School. There are ongoing road safety issues outside the school. It is a very congested part of Shirley, been exacerbated by roadworks for a very long time. The issue there is red light runners. The meeting we had yesterday, which was pulled together by our community board staff, governance staff, very cool, reasonably quickly, included police, the school, parents, Christchurch City Council, parking enforcement, Penny Gray, our engineer, and a number of our community board staff. We came out of that meeting with 7 action points. One of those is to look at doing a full safety audit, if that's called a corridor audit, so not just around the immediate external part of the school, but from Hills Road right down to just before the Palms. That's what affects the safety there. So it was suggested that a 40k school zone light might help, and they're expensive, and we have to tick a lot of NZTA boxes related to getting that. We then discussed looking at getting a warning sign which basically just says children. So if drivers are aware that there are children in the area, because the school is not that obvious, it actually looks like a big office building that's very new along there, if you've been along there. If drivers are aware of children in the area, they will slow down. So it'd be a combined effort, the sign, police enforcing, City Council enforcing, and also someone suggested the children holding flags as they cross the road, as they do at St Albans Primary. Great suggestion, very simple to do. So it was a very positive meeting, and we're looking at having something in 4 weeks basically to be able to act on there. So just a good example of engaging with the community face to face and getting some positive outcomes. I think that's all.
Great, thank you very much. Clearly there's a lot going on. Great. Time for a couple of questions. Vicky.
Just on the area outside the school, would it be sensible just to lower the speed limit permanently?
We discussed this yesterday. It was interesting because some people said that there is something in law already that dictates you must travel at 40 k's an hour outside a school. Some said that's true, some said it wasn't.
We had an interesting deputation at the ITI committee on this very subject.
Right.
And learnt quite a lot from it.
And that's the issue. It's not speed, because traffic congestion is so great outside the school. The traffic's crawling anyway. Okay. So that's why the other sign was of more use potentially. Okay. Yeah. It's visibility. Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Further questions? So we have a recommendation to receive the community board report. Do I have a mover? Mike, seconded. Pauline. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thanks very much indeed, Ali, for the board's update. Thank you. Now the Fendles and Waimari Harewood Community Board, item 11, and we have David Carter to the table, please. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll take the report as read. Probably 2 items to draw your attention to. One which is, I don't actually know is here, is around the Bishopdale Library. Just note for your diaries, at 9:30 on the 22nd of July as the opening. It would be great to see as many of you here as you possibly can. Second thing here, community projects. I was asked earlier about the Elmwood Club. This is a key project within our area. This is a great example of a partnership between not only government departments but the local community and sports groups. After the earthquake, there was a bowling green which was written off. They dumped a whole lot of truckloads of sand onto it, turned it into a big play and adventure area, beach volleyball amongst other things. It's also a drop-in centre for after-school children. It's a great meeting space for a number of our elderly in the community. They are looking to put in a new sports hub into that area, which will be, we've reported to be world leading in the way of some of the cricket services that they will provide for indoor cricket and training. So it's a great project if they can get some funding for it and move it off the ground. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Pauline.
Question, I just have a comment about that volleyball, the bowling green being turned into a volleyball court, because I think, and you've retained one bowling green there, so you've got the mixture of the old and the young in the same place, and I just think that is just fantastic. So well done there.
No, I'm sure they'd be happy to give anybody a tour.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Noting the section in your report where you talk about a spike in local burglaries.
Yes.
The board have obviously been working with the police on that issue.
Yes.
And you found the police collaborative and you've been able to work together with the police. I noticed that an arrest had been made and that seemed as though it had resulted in a drop in that
it was a
activity.
reoffender who has been detained.
Great. And of course that would have been an opportunity for the board to strengthen its relationship with the police around other issues.
Indeed, obviously we've got second largest social housing in the city, and a point which is often forgotten. The police have certainly got their hands full and working hard to resolve those issues.
All right, thank you. Any further questions for David? All right, so we have once again a recommendation to receive the community board report, moved by Ref, seconded by Jamie. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Against? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed for the report. Thank you. Okay, so then we move to the Banks Peninsula Community Board. Christine, good morning, welcome. And looking forward to hearing what's happening on the peninsula this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. So we have three things to highlight this morning. You're right. Good. Just click on down here. Yep. Good. So the first being the Birdlings Flat Community Centre, the opening of that. And then we've got our reserve management plans. We've just got a wee bit of an update on that. And then we have a plea from the Seafarers Association. So to start off with, here's the facility that's just about ready to be opened, and the residents and the community of Birdlings Flat are absolutely thrilled about this new facility. It's been a long time coming and it's been hard fought for. The name of it is Te Mata Hapuku, and it's going to be open on the 23rd of June. The successful build for this is a combination of strong community and Christchurch City Council collaborative process. The build itself has been completely project managed by the community, and with the support of a local builder. So the facility itself will be council owned but community managed. So it's a real team effort. I think really the community needs to be congratulated for such fine effort. The council contributed $180,000, but the Little River Wairere Community Trust then took up the baton and fundraised the $200,000 that was needed on top of that, so that was a great effort also. The ongoing costs to the council are minimal as it's going to be community run, so I think there's lots to celebrate that, and you're all invited. Well, it's a reminder that you're invited to attend the opening. It'd be great if you could come along and support the Birdlings Flat community. So I'm sure that you would have seen that invitation come through your diaries or something like that. Good. Right, the next is our reserve planning on the Banks Peninsula, reserves planning. So we have Misty Peaks in Te Oka and Uramea. So the Misty Peaks is the background to Akarawa, and Te Oka is close to Little River. And Uramea is quite a big reserve behind the Littleton Township. So we'll just go through those one by one. So Misty Peaks Reserve, it contains small blocks of old growth and red beech forest in the outer bays. The high tops are mostly clothed with snow tussock and regeneration indigenous montane forest. There's a high potential for native vegetation regeneration. So with all of these reserves, we are going out to do community consultation just to see exactly what they'd like seen done with them. And Misty Peaks and Te Oka currently do not have management committees, so that's just a process that needs to be worked through. The Te Oka Reserve is about 7 hectares of old growth of podocarp forest, which is remnant of the original pre-European forest that once dominated Banks Peninsula, so less than 1% of that remains. There's a considerable amount of totara regeneration, with trees 3 to 5 metres high scattered through both the Tumbledown stream and the Te Oka Bay stream valleys. So there's a bit of work to be done there. Iramau Reserve, so this just shows the 10 areas which comprise Iramau, and it is a reserve that does important work. So we have quite a big committee there that looks after Iramau, and they concentrate on the plant species and using locally sourced plants for that reserve. And this particular reserve is highly used by walkers and mountain bikers. So that plan has just been updated at the moment. Our next item is the Littleton Seafarers Centre. So at the meeting on the 22nd of May, there was a deputation to the board. So what the seafarers are looking for is support for an implementation of port levy. This is basically to help support the running of the centre that is quite vital to the seagoing men that come into the port. So they basically are supplied with an area where they can go and make contact with their families. They have computers. If they need to exchange money, they can do all of that. Here's a photo of some of the men. Littleton's always provided a seafarers centre, but after the earthquakes we lost the one that was there, so we had the men actually sitting outside the library, even in the winter, trying to get Wi-Fi. So fortunately we now have this facility, but it's not on a permanent property, so that's another part of the problem. So, and also it's all done on voluntary, it's staffed by volunteers who can't always be there. So what it means that we've got this lovely facility, but it's not always open because there's a shortage of volunteer support. And so the seafarers are really looking to see how they can get support for a levy, so they can look at maybe putting a manager in. So this all comes in line with our obligations to support the Maritime Labour Convention, which was just adopted in March of this year. So we do have a responsibility to these men, and it's quite, we see a lot of them coming into Littleton, as we've done over the years, and all they basically want is somewhere where they can go and connect into their families, connect home, and so that's what that's about. So I was away for that deputation, but I believe it was really, expressed quite, well, there was a lot of concern about what's happening there, so that's it really.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Christine. And the board actually asked for some further work to be done and report back on the Littleton Seafarers Centre issue. Yes. So that'll be an ongoing conversation. But yeah, quality of welcome for those visiting seafarers to Littleton certainly was something that the board were concerned about. So we'll now move to questions. Tim and then Dion.
Thank you. With regards to the seafarers area, yes, could the LPC not clip the ticket with regards to the berthing costs and put a bit on top, so that then funds the centre? Because, I mean, we have a responsibility, but I would suggest that their employers have a larger responsibility, and as soon as they enter New Zealand waters, yes, it should be leveraged. Because we have a finite amount of money, we're having trouble housing our own people, and it just keeps going and going. So, I mean, just thinking outside the box perhaps and going back to the source.
That's the levy
that they're asking.
Yeah, that is the levy that they're asking for. That would be the ideal if that could happen, but I think they just would like, board support.
As a council, how do we move that forward?
That's exactly the information that's coming back to the board. And certainly what was proposed by the Seafarers Centre was a levy on visiting ships, exactly, Tim, as you're proposing, rather than that council should fund this particular facility. At the moment it's on land that's owned by independent fisheries. That's an arrangement which is great for the moment, but may not be able to continue long term.
But there are two issues, aren't there? One, that the land's a separate issue. If we can get a leverage off through the Little Port Company on the berthing of ships, and that solves that funding problem.
Indeed.
And the other problem is a land issue, which is technically, I suppose, for want of a better, is the board's or ours.
Yeah, and that might be an area where council can assist, but certainly on the levy, what the board has asked for is information to come back on how that could be achieved, and the thinking would be exactly as you suggest, that it would be a levy on visiting ships.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dion.
Thank you.
Is there an internet cafe in Littleton?
No, just the library.
Just the library?
Yes.
Because that could be actually self-sufficient, make, these things, they always require money, but we've got to think about ways to make them self-sufficient. And I mean, when I was on ships, that was the first thing we did go and look for, was an internet cafe, go have a latte or a beer or something like that and get on the internet. So, I mean, is that an option that's been looked at?
The library's free. The library's free. And I think before the Seafarers Centre was developed, this was the reason they were going to the library, and after hours they were sitting outside just to pick up on the Wi-Fi, so it was an accepted thing that was happening, but yes, at the moment we only have the library as the other alternative. So, the volunteers that they have got down there are very good, but I mean they can, obviously it's hard to get, X amount to have it open 24/7. So, and they've got to have training and... But yes, it's certainly one of the things that most seafarers want to do, like you say. They want to get ashore and just, make contact with their families, and so it's really important. We do have a duty of care. It's the first time I've ever known, well, before this facility was developed, that Littleton didn't have a Seafarers Centre, so this is what created the problem with them sitting outside in the cold. So.
Thank you. Dave and then Phil.
Thank you. More of a comment than a question. Councillor Scandrett talked of imposing a levy on shipping coming into the port to perhaps assist in the provision of this facility. Conversations I'm aware of at times is that a number of shipping organisations, particularly some of our fishing operations, actually go to Timaru because the cost of berthing at Littleton is getting increasingly higher. So we need to be mindful of the fact that we can't just sort of simply say, well, the ships coming into port, we can impose a levy on them. We have to be mindful of shipping movements around the South Island and the perception that at times the berthage charges at Littleton are quite high, and a number of shipping firms actually choose to go to Timaru because of that. So we don't really want to further exacerbate shipping companies not choosing to go to Littleton as a consequence.
Yep. So it's, Dave, that's a fair comment, and this is exactly the kind of information the board expects to get back, rather than just making a decision to do something or to advocate something straight away. We felt there was a need for further information to be brought back. So thank you very much for that comment. And then finally coming to Phil.
Thanks, Christine. And like you referred to the Te Oka and Misty Peaks management, which is part of Parks. Yes. I just want to ask you about other areas which are owned by private landowners, because yesterday at our ITI committee we recommended actually setting up of it's a biodiversity fund for to part of it to clearly to enhance the environment, some of the gullies, fencing off, planting, that kind of thing. So I'm aware your board won't have had the chance to discuss this. I'm just wondering if you think that your board might support such a fund.
I can't see why not. Yeah, and I think that, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I think it's something that they would be open to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. We could have further discussion too. Thanks, Christine.
Yes. Cool.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm now happy that we receive the Community Board report, so I'll move that. And do I have a seconder? Pauline. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, and thanks, Christine, for the report. Good to have you with us.
Lovely, thank you.
And then we move, last but not least, to the Coastal Burwood Community Board. Kim, welcome to the table.
I've got my partner in crime, Tim, coming along too, and Joe. Thanks. Just
I'll grab one. Oh, look at that shit of wood.
Great, so Kim and Tim, good to have you with us. And you have 10 minutes to present your report. Thank you.
Good morning, thank you Andrew. Morning councillors, staff and community. Just as we introduced, Tim is our Deputy Chair and Joe is our Board Governance Manager, so thank you, well, it's lovely to be here. We have no Part A's to report back from our meetings on the 1st of May and 15th of May. Under the Community Board decisions under delegation, just like to highlight one thing. The board approved the repairs of the earthquake damaged South New Brighton boardwalk, which you can see up there, the bridge and the shore protection and the concept design of the car park, and this has been achieved within the allocated budgets, and the community feedback has been brilliant. They are so excited that they're going to get this lovely special asset back and a few enhancements along the way. And a really big thank you out to staff, because they listened to the community board and the community's desires and consequently provided a win-win situation. And so this is a really good outcome for us for these earthquake repairs, so thank you. Significant projects and initiatives. We have New Brighton Pier up there, slide 8, thank you Joe. And this is going along really, really well. It was fantastic to know that the contractors made a way that the pier could actually stay open while they were repairing it. The only time they close it is when they've got some big trucks coming and going, but the majority of the time it's open. It'll be completed in February 18. And if you're really interested in that sort of stuff, go down and have a look, because it is quite fascinating. Slide 9, thank you. The South Brighton jetty repair. Great progress has been made on this, and this will be completed about July, August, so that sort of links in with South Brighton. We've got really good movement going on there, and again, it's something that you can take your kids down and watch in the weekends. Significant community issues. We've got here, Estuary Edge is really predominant for our area. South Brighton here. We've got 3 separate issues on the Estuary Edge there in South Brighton and South Shore, but they're all related. So the first one, as I've mentioned previously, is that the South Shore residents and community came up with their own report on a way to provide protection, reinstate the protection that they had before from the earthquakes, and they provided this to us at the Community Board, which was done by OSL Consultants. So they have asked us as a Community Board to help assist them with that. So the progress on that is that the Community Board have had a briefing meeting with Regenerate Christchurch, because this particular stretch is in the red zone, and we have had that first briefing, and then next week we're hoping to have a follow-up meeting to discuss a way forward. Real concerns here. There, as you can see at the top left, top left, that is part of the protection Gabion baskets. Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, in South Brighton.
In South Brighton there, that's Gabion baskets, the wire and the rocks. So generally they work, but being earthquake damage and the land slumping, it's proven to be a challenge there. Moving on to the South New Brighton issues there, which is the land area of Southbridge, slide 3, 4, 5 and 6. Are we still there?
Yep.
Okay, sure. So we're just talking about the urgent action required there at South New Brighton. Part of that was the land that has been, we've got the slides up there just showing the land.
Which one was that?
Yep, some of those. Yep, that's good. The estuary edge there, as you can see, in the last storm, we've had quite a bit of erosion there, which is a real worry for the camping ground at South New Brighton, because the estuary edge protection that is there has sunk. We're just finding that it's been eroded quite quickly. We were down there on the 1st of May to hand the keys over to the new lessees of the South New Brighton camping ground, and they're really concerned about this because the protection hasn't been reinstated. So we're discussing this with staff, and we'll bring Regenerate Christchurch into that, but this is a really urgent issue at the moment because as you can see, we're going to be losing some trees any day now. So now we're on to the midges. So coming up here, this is the midges issue, which we've brought up from time to time. The community, we met with them, we've met with the affected residents twice in the last month. The meeting we had last night was with the whole community board and to hear their concerns, but at the peak, at the worst, which you can see top left, is windows and doors, and they're attracted to light, and literally they're just covered, the black. This is a real concern. At its worst, it's like a biblical plague, you might say. At its worst, yeah. So we're going to do something about this, and so there we have midgets, okay? Midgies. So these residents, in the peak of it, they can't actually go outside. They're told to shut their windows and doors. It's just you know, quite disturbing. So out of last night's meeting, the outcome of that was to ask staff to provide an options report, and the options report will include something from that's short-term action and also looking at long-term action here, because to be quite real, everyone in this room actually contributes to this problem, because this is all around the am I allowed to say poo ponds? The sewage treatment ponds, and so it's a citywide issue. We hope to make some progress on this because they shouldn't be living with that. Okay, so now we go to Community Board Significant Matters of Interest. We have got the Community Services Award coming up next week, and it's always really exciting to reward and acknowledge those who strengthen community spirit and acknowledge the commitment to their making our neighbourhood and city a greater place to live. So we've got that coming up next week, which is amazing. Also, people have mentioned the Styx River Source to Sea bus trip. Fantastic host, thank you very much, really enjoyed that. And now, yeah, it was amazing. Food was really great as well, and we're part of that now as we've adopted the Spencerville and Brooklands into our ward. We've got the Pukeko Centre information there. We've put a link, and this is a really great story about two community groups, Parklands Bowling Club and the Parklands Rugby Football Club, coming together, pulling resources and being really innovative and creative with their the outcomes that they've achieved, and they've managed to secure buildings, old buildings from the Freeville Primary School to make this come about, and they're going to be building it in stages. But you'll have to go to the link to just check into that. Sorry, I don't have a picture. Oh, we do later. The National Community Board Conference, which some of us attended there, that was a fantastic conference. We provided you with the link, and can I strongly encourage councillors and staff to have a professional development day or two with the same guest speakers that we had, because they were really fantastic and outstanding, really encouraging and inspirational. So that was fantastic to be part of that. The Coastal Burwood Community Board bus tour, well, thank you to everybody that came. We had a lot of fun. All the pictures that we're seeing up here, I think we can credit to Dion, our budding photographer Dion Swiggs. Actually, mentioning you, Dion, I had a really important announcement to make before we started our bus tour, and Dion piped up and said, "You're pregnant." So we haven't got a budding photographer, we've also got a budding comedian. But the very important announcement that I was going to say was actually there was no easterly. So I just needed to make sure that everybody that was on that bus trip actually knew that there was no easterly at that point. Don't say a thing, Sarah, it did come up at 10:10. Yeah, I know. Coffee was good, wasn't it? Yeah, so these next slides we've got here, as you, so we'll just go back, sorry. The top right, that there happens to be the QE2 starting there, coming up out of the ground now, the sport and recreation, absolutely fantastic. Went there and saw that, fantastic. Down below we've got the Spencerville Surf Life Saving new club rooms, awesome facility it's going to be. It won't be able to open until we get them potable water, so hence our annual plan request of $50,000 there for them. What's the next slide? Thank you, Joe. We've got up the top left, we have the Horseshoe Lake Reserve. We're out in consultation at the moment about the Little Wee Footbridge, so we're just waiting for the results of that. At the bottom there is, again, Dion, beautiful photo. That's where we started off, no easterly, fantastic day, and DCL Rob Hall took us through what was happening there. This is amazing, the Imagination Station is something new coming to New Brighton, opening on the 16th of June. It's a new pop-up, it's going to be here for 10 weeks, and this has been made possible by a grant by DCL to the Imagination Station from their Creating Momentum Regeneration Fund. And so that's a really thing. Get on down there with your kids and check that out. If you haven't done the town one, you can check this one out as well. So it's not only just to play, you also can have school groups can go there after school, during school. You can also have birthday parties and after school classes, so that's fantastic. And there's a picture down there on the bottom right, and that's the Pukeko Centre that we were talking about, just some plans there. And the last slide, finishing up here, is the what? The perfect morning in New Brighton. That's absolutely amazing picture. And when I look at that, I just think about it's a new morning and it's a new start for New Brighton. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions on this report? Glenn.
Wonder how you found the, I've got a comment after this, how you found the South New Brighton jetty, and because you're a new board member, Kim, although our chair, but both the jetty and the boardwalk process and arriving at that.
How I found the process?
Yeah, getting to that point.
I thought it was fantastic for the community to be involved in it. I thought it was amazing how we were, as a board, were able to revisit a report, and how the staff took that on board and went away worked really hard to achieve the results that we were asking for. And it was even better than we expected because of the results that we had, and was able to come under budget, allowing the other things that were needing to be done through earthquake to be done as well. So that was absolutely, the process I thought was really encouraging.
The reason I asked that set-up question, Oscar Elpers was here before. He said he was at an elected members seminar he took part a few years ago. He said always question staff reports, you know, with due respect to our staff, but that and the asbestos remediation good examples of when you push hard and question, things can be done. You know, an option may present that it suggests it can't. But they've been great outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Dave.
I'd just like to give greater emphasis to the part about the midgets with the observation points. We have a number of residents in the Bexley area that are in absolute atrocious conditions with midgets, particularly in the summer months. So I'd just like to say that it is a very serious problem. And we need to, once we get these options paid back, consider how we can improve the lot of these people, but they're living in conditions where they can't actually entertain outdoors. They can't open their doors at night for infiltration of just thousands of midges. And when their houses are lit up at night, they go into the bathroom, for example, and it's just the window is just a black mass. The midges are attracted to the light. The sides of their building, one neighbour, one person spoke to us last night, had erected a new fence, an iron fence. The fence got warm in the summer months and it was just black with midges. So I'm very keen to see some progress on this issue, and it does extend to looking at different sort of chemical applications that we might be able to bowl these midges over, right through to the ultimate and quite expensive option of installing a UV plant in our our sewage treatment plant, which would obviate the problem altogether, but it comes at some cost, and I'm led to believe something like about $2,000 or $3,000 a day in power charges to operate it. So we have quite a problem of some magnitude that we've got to sort out here.
And I'd just like to respond to say that staff do understand the issue and have taken it seriously. So they've been working on this for some considerable time. It's a very difficult issue to address.
It's a huge issue.
An options paper also took up what's been done in the past as well.
So anyway, it's great that we're acknowledging that we have a huge problem, and I hope that we're able to give these residents some relief in the next summer months to come.
Yeah, clearly there's some work underway around this options paper. Clearly there's work that's been done in the past as well. The hope would be, of course, that we're able to put in place any changes or anything as a result of the options paper prior to the summer months, and we're hearing that loud and clear. Final question from Pauline.
I was just going to reiterate that it was on our Three Waters and Waste report yesterday at the ITI committee, so we'll be following that through, and there's already been significant money spent on this issue, so obviously it's nowhere near resolved. It is challenging, but we'll be following it through as well. And it's more of a comment really. I just want to congratulate this board, because you guys are going from strength to strength, and the passion that you have for everything you've got out there, and you're very, very lucky to have everything you have out there in the environment. It's a real gem, and I think that your board is leading the regeneration of New Brighton, and I just want to congratulate you for that.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So item 13, the recommendation is to receive the community board report, moved by Glenn, seconded by Dave. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. So now we move on to item 14, the Mayor's monthly report. Are there any questions on this report? And I'm not sure who the questions would be fielded to, even if there were any. Whether I find myself in the position of answering questions on a report that I didn't write. Maybe there are no questions. Tim moves. Jamie seconds. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. And then we move to the Chief Executive's report. Are there any questions for the Chief Executive on this report? Phil. Yeah, I'm taking a question from Phil first, and then I'll come to you, Jimmy, and then Dion, and then Glenn. Right, okay. But questions first. If you've got comments, we'll take those after the questions. Okay, so Phil, over to you.
So, thanks, Andrew. I'm just on our page 78 of the report. I think it's page 3, under corporate services and section on housing. I just want to clarify really, like the comments. Like, I certainly understand, Carleen, that with changing from our social housing to come under the housing trust, that in fact we would be reducing resources in that area. I understand that, but I just really want to ask about the issue of emergency housing in the city, where clearly, again though, the council role is to work with other agencies, not to do it all. I'm aware of that, but it's really just, can we be assured that we'll have sufficient resources at council here with social housing expertise to help address this matter?
Thank you. It's a good question. As you're aware, we did transfer a number of staff over to the Housing Trust, mainly in terms of those people that deliver the services in terms of social housing. And the transfer of this work is around the minor maintenance. So council still is positioned to provide advocacy, local policy leadership, asset management services for the longer term maintenance issues as well. So we'll still have sufficient expertise to assist in responding to emergency housing matters, but as you quite rightly said, it's an issue that we deal with a number of agencies, and the direct delivery of emergency housing tenancy management services sits with other agencies. So our role is in terms of that advocacy and support and policy leadership.
Okay. Thanks, Carleen.
Thank you. Now, Jimmy, was yours a question or was it a comment? Okay, so I'll come to that at the end because we'll take questions first. Okay, so Glenn.
Thank you. Just page 18 in relation to the red bins, rather the bins. Carleen, it says 28% have been tagged of those 2,000 removed from circulation. I just wondered why and what will happen to those bins.
They'll be replaced where they need to be replaced. Some of it's due to damage, some of it's due to lost bins. So it's about having the cycle of bins that are useful.
Yeah, okay.
And usable.
Usable, so, yeah. Okay, I'll come back later with that.
All right, Dion.
Mine's just around the operational results, and you talk about the additional parking revenues of 1.5 million. Can you just elaborate a little bit of where that's come from?
Not specifically, but that will be around where streets have been reopened and car parks reopened around that as well.
So with this additional revenue, are we looking at potential ways, because I mean the central city is still very challenging to get into, so with this additional revenue, are we going to be looking at ways where we can use that to encourage people to come back into the central city and make it easier for people in the time that
Well, councillors have raised in the past things such as an hour's free parking and that sort of thing, so it's important for us to do a bit of an analysis of that, about the impact of that. The other issues in terms of free car parking within car parking buildings is really what we can do within our own car park buildings as opposed to those private ones that people have invested to put up around the city. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to happen around that, and an understanding of what we've also budgeted for within our annual plan, for example.
I would personally like to see that money reinvested into the central city for the period time anyway, just to because it is a challenging space at the moment.
Is this a continuation of the question?
Yes, there's another question I've got there is around the personnel costs. I mean, we're still tracking quite $2.7 million at the moment year to date. Can you elaborate a little bit on where that's coming from?
So a number of things have happened over the year. So one of those will be new facilities that have opened that require to be staffed up, but also we've had a program of reducing our number of contractors, and where we have them over a long period of time, we're likely to require that source, converting them into FTE, which is actually a cheaper option for us. So roughly at our peak, we had something like, it was around 207 long-term contractors. We're down to 147, and it saves considerable funds in a different part of the budget.
And just on the debt servicing as well, is there I didn't see any explanation on the extra that it's cost on the debt servicing for the year to date. Is there anyone that can talk about that one?
I think that might be around the capital expenditure. Our CFO's just walked in the door, but one of the issues you'll also see is that whilst capital delivery might be behind, capital expenditure is ahead, and that's because of the way we budget for capital. So it's been the tradition to budget for a slightly lower level than our targets, and we're actually ahead of our targets.
Okay, cool.
Financially.
Which means the debt's coming on earlier. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pauline.
Oh yes, mine's also about the favourable revenue to date, and one of the reasons being the unplanned Crown contribution for Three Waters and asset management of 4.7 million. So that's the kind of a good news story, but how can you explain how that's come about?
So we've been reporting that most of the year, and that's to do with the some of the skirt projects. Do you want to speak to that, Dave?
To do with the contract around servicing the red zone and the additional infrastructure, or the expense around the infrastructure that we've got in that area, and so that will be coming to a close, unfortunately. In the
so when you say it was unplanned, was it unexpected, or you were expecting it but didn't build it in?
When the original estimates, we expected actually the red zone to be empty, and so when it wasn't empty, we got into an agreement of how we would fund those services in there, amongst other things. Yes.
So when you say it's coming to an end soon, when is that, and what are we going to do?
We are talking about with the Crown. The Crown has put a deadline on when that servicing, and it's got to now be integrated. You'll be aware, court cases over our legal obligation to provide those services to it. So it's all wrapped up in there. What we are doing is we are looking at ways that we can service those properties in a far more cost-effective way. So what we've done in the past is we've kept the traditional systems running. So you may have a very, very long gravity main with only one house on it, which we need to flush every couple of weeks, and so what we're trying to do is look at ways of putting pump sewer systems in there, and so we're doing a little bit to make those operational costs drop. So you'll get a drop in cost, but you'll also get a drop in income.
But you get an increase in capital expenditure to put those in. And can you tell us what the total cost is per annum at the moment to service those?
I'm sorry, I don't have that at my fingertips, but we do
It's a
find that
considerable
out.
amount, isn't it?
I think we have reported it to council. I'm sorry, I just don't have it off the top of my
It'd be
head.
quite good if we could get that, it'd be quite interesting to know.
Yeah, if we could get that information, have it circulated, would be good. Yep, Glenn,
Sorry,
back to you.
supplementary to that, could we also have the cost liability for that, given that originally it was a Crown decision to red, so we provide the services, but the Crown made the call over red zoning the land. So could we have please well, not a report, but an indication of where the cost lies for extra services over and above, such as specialised pump?
And we can probably get a quick answer to where the extra cost lies, I imagine.
There's no extra cost, but the when
Who's
we call
liable
it the
for it?
outlaws, the something or other court case basically said that council has an obligation to provide full services to those properties because they're within our district and they had services, and so they have to have those services maintained. They don't actually have to look exactly the same, but they have to give the same level of service. So that's what we're doing. We're modifying those to give a similar levels, and it's. I'm sorry, I wasn't involved with the court case, but it was trunk through the court quite significantly. So the obligation to provide those services sits with council.
Right, the same level of service, that means that we're going to incur extra cost for...
Well, it relates back, you will recall some previous papers around which parts of our infrastructure we could close off and which parts we had to keep available to service those people who are still there. So that will have that information, perhaps we'll dig that one out.
And that included roading too, didn't it? Because
It
do we get the same input in the cost sharing with the roading maintenance? Or was it just the Three Waters?
No, this is around Three Waters. The roading is still covered between ourselves and the Crown around maintenance if we are using that, and we've got an agreement with the Crown about which we'd shut off, which you approved. So I'll dig that report up, which would have been probably 18 months ago, I would imagine. And it will have indicative costs in there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, great, thank you. If that can be circulated, that would be helpful.
Sorry,
Thank you.
which bit was coming to an end? I just missed that bit though. You said something was coming to an end.
Basically, the shared agreement between ourselves and the Crown around some of those operational costs, and we are looking at, like I say, putting in some capital investment that will give us a return, make it a heck of a lot cheaper to do it, and principally around sewage schemes, which is the most expensive part of it.
And do you have a figure on the amount of capital investment we're going to require?
Again, I think we've reported that. I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head, but we have reported that back to you. So I can dig that report up again as well, Mr. Chairman.
That would be helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, questions? Okay, great. Now, Jimmy, I'm aware that you've got some commentary, which we will come to in a minute, but I'll get a mover and a seconder for this report first. I'm happy to move it. Sarah's happy to second. So we now move into any commentary or debate on this, and I'll come to Jimmy.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to comment regarding to the council launch of the Christchurch multicultural strategy, especially, that's very the successful event, and it's truly the milestone and the historical, the moment for the people of Christchurch. I would like to particularly in here, to acknowledge and appreciate our staff. They've done a great job, a contribution, organized perfect. The total have around 180 people turn up. Not only the Christchurch city, my understanding, even it's outside of Christchurch, Canterbury area, like Waimea, the mayor, and also the Sovereign, the mayor, they also participate in this event. But even the staff done a great job. I would like to particularly acknowledge Claire, Kaharua, and also the judge. They done the extremely the excellent job. So try to open to acknowledge them. Yes, so this is the particular I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jimmy. And that certainly was an excellent event and marked the end of one process, which had been collaborative and hugely successful, and the beginning, of course, of a new set of processes, which is delivering the actions under that strategy. So, no, thanks very much indeed for your comments. Okay, so this has been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to the supplementary item, the Port Hills Fire Recovery Support, and we have staff here for this. If you'd like to come through to the table, please. Okay, so was there any comment that you'd like to make by way of introduction on this report before we take some questions?
No, I'd just like to acknowledge the organisations involved in this that assisted us as the recovery management team, ECAN staff and others. The 3 Runanga that were involved had representatives on there as well, so I'd like to acknowledge those. I would just like to point out that the recommendation, what we're just getting changed up there, recommendation 2, should say note that the medium-term actions are being considered as part of the annual plan. The short-term ones were the actions we've taken to date and have been resolved.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move to any questions. And there are none. Okay, so can I get it? Oh, Phil, have you got a question?
Look, thanks for the report and all the work that's been done. Just in terms of working with the community and those particularly who've been impacted, you referred very clearly to that report and a lot of work has been done there. I just want to make sure that in fact we are going to be able to continue some follow-up where that might be necessary.
The recommendations report that staff do continue, so we need to align this back in with sort of the normal work staff are doing. There are issues, probably the major issue still up there, particularly around Worsleys Road, is there are a couple of properties up there, still significant vegetation damage that are struggling to clear that, and that's how the council staff can assist in those is limited, but we are trying to endeavour to do something there.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, so Sarah's indicated she'd like to move this, so moved by Sarah, seconded by Tim. Any debate? All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. So we now move to the resolution to exclude the public. So I will move to I'll move to exclude the public, and that Leah Scales, Chief Financial Officer, Paul Munro, Chief Executive of CCHL, and Rob Hall, Chief Executive, and Joe Lishka, Director Corporate Services, remain for item 19. And Tom Hooper be admitted of Christchurch, Tom Hooper of Christchurch NZ remain for items 17 and 18 after the public have been excluded, as they have knowledge that's relevant to those items and will assist the council. I'm happy to move. Jamie's happy to second. All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Now we've got the DCL guys here. What I propose that we do though is just take a quick 5-minute break as we clear the room. It's now 53. If we come back at midday, so bang on 12 o'clock, and we'll do the DCL SOI first and then move on from there. Thank you.